What is a good starter video game for a middle-aged man who has never really played before? I started with a game called Super Mario Bros. Edit. I wrote a comment yesterday and thought that's some good content right there. It got one upvote, as is tradition. A starter game? I've contained my rage for as long as possible, but I shall unleash my fury upon you like the crashing of 1,000 waves. Be gone, vile man. Be gone from me. A starter game? This game is a finisher game. I wanted to be more specific, but apparently that broke the submission rules and was removed. We have no console, so online games or downloads only. Bonus if it is a game my wife and 15-year-old stepdaughter can play together. Edit. JFC. I posted this then got caught up in work. I have a lot of reading to do. How am I supposed to ever get to the actual games? Thank you all for the feedback and suggestions. Edit 2. I'm hearing on here that my computer video card might affect my ability to play video games. I have a Dell XPS 13 Core i7 2018 that apparently has 128 megabytes dedicated Intel UHD graphics 620. No idea if that card is good enough or if I need to consider upgrading. Edit 3. Gold. 13k upvotes. For my little question that I hoped might get a couple of serious replies. I'm blushing. How do I see who gifted it? What do I do with it? Also, RIP Inbox never had to say that before. Worms. It's turn-based and absolutely hilarious. Edit. Holy cheese, I get on a flight and then when I land I have 4 awards and 20k upvotes? That's insane. Worms deserves all the love. Stardew Valley is basically created for you guys. A lot of people are listing some really big adventure games. Overcooked and Overcooked 2 are some of the most entertaining, family friendly, and easy to understand games around. Everyone can play together. Overcooked is like Monopoly. If you don't hate your family, this is a great game to do so. Especially if you want to curse up a storm. No, it needed lettuce, not tomato. AGHHHH runs character around holding the curse button. Some suggestions you've gotten that are downright bad for a new gamers, and why. Portal 1 or 2, while 90% is puzzles that take a bit of time but are doable, there are some complicated parts. If unfamiliar with first-person shooter controls, you might run into an issue getting up a very large shaft in Portal 1. For example, since you'll be required to move the mouse quickly and effectively while flying through the air and aiming new portals. The Stanley Parable. While it's simple to play through, most of the comedy of this game might be lost on someone who hasn't played a lot of games already. It subverts a lot of norms, which is just going to be confusing without knowing the norms and what the subversion of them is supposed to represent. Civilization. I have to imagine this was suggested as a joke. Don't try to make this your first game. Seriously. It is complex and first-time gamers probably wouldn't even find it very fun. Dark Souls. You have probably already heard about how terribly difficult this game can be. Some suggestions you've gotten that are good. Stardew Valley. There's no rush in it, no real backwards progress, so you don't have to worry about failure. It's calming and cheerful, and you can get a feel for progression through actions and how menus work. Overcooked. It's hectic but it's all in fun. You don't need to know much about menus, and there's very little you'll need to learn to start playing immediately. Low difficulty curve to start, but it expands as you go. Minecraft. Comfortable atmosphere during the day, and for the most part you can avoid combat if you need to. There's a large amount of expanded gamma play once you get into fighting and exploring, but you can play at your own pace fairly easily and learn on your own terms. Apparently there is a recipe book for every crafted item in the game, which is a new addition that makes this doable as a first-time gamer. Note, I'd suggest having someone help you out with this if you know someone who has played before. Plants vs Zombies. Simple to understand, very approachable for first-time or casual gamers. My personal recommendations. I'd second Overcooked and Stardew Valley. Firewatch. A beautiful story, no backwards progression, and a basic UI to get you acclimated to how game UI tends to work. Geometry Wars 1, 2, and 3. Note, only if you have an Xbox controller for your PC. This game can get extremely difficult at higher levels, but there's plenty of fun at lower levels and it's easy to pick up and start playing immediately. Braid, a simple platformer with a unique art style and some unique gameplay mechanics, namely time reversal. Limbo, stylized platformer with some interesting storytelling and world building you might enjoy. There is risk and some difficult parts, but nothing a new gamer won't be able to get through. Osmos, simple mechanic of movement through space and absorption of smaller items to get bigger. But it gets complicated as orbital mechanics are brought in, and enemy objects racing to get bigger than you. Very simple to understand once you start playing, and it's very calming during non-competitive levels. Minecraft actually has a crafting guide in game now, so you can click what you want and make it, or learn the recipe of it. No mods required. Portal 1 or 2, while 90% is puzzles that take a bit of time but are doable, there are some complicated parts. If unfamiliar with first-person shooter controls, you might run into an issue getting up a very large shaft in Portal 1. For example, since you'll be required to move the mouse quickly and effectively while flying through the air and aiming new portals. To expand on this, I would say the Portal games are a good introduction to first-person shooters, but they are not a good introduction to games in general. Stardew Valley. You all can play together. It's wholesome, takes time and a lot of things to discover. I don't play video games ever, but got the hang of this pretty easily. Once I got the fishing and mining figured out, nothing could stop me. It's like $15 on Steam and I use my laptop. Very good game. There's also an app, so you can play on your phone/pad. Best thing about SV for newcomers, there's no lose state. To put it simply, you can never play so poorly that the game makes you stop playing and start over or anything like that. As a bonus, the win states are also very self-determined. Basically, when you feel you've built a successful farm, the game helpfully provides the community center to measure your progress against, but it's not the end all be all. That's when you've won. Perfect for first timers. Minecraft. This actually is true. I watched a video of Rasputin that let his wife, non-gamer, play Minecraft and it was actually pretty interesting. Here's a link to the video if you're interested. Akabang hits and multiplayer Legos. I strongly recommend the Lego games. So much fun. I believe most of them have multiplayer as well. I was looking for this. First game I remember playing was Lego Star Wars on the original box. Easy to pick up even as a 7-year-old edit. If anyone has kids and is on the fence about the Lego games, I highly recommend them for a parent/kid game. Some of my favorite memories are from when my dad and I getting all the minikits together. Seconded. They're fun, challenging but not too challenging, easy to learn, and there's a ton of licensed versions. Harry Potter, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, LOTR, plus you can't really die like you can in other games. They reward exploration and I can't count how many times I've had to put down the controller because I was laughing so hard. Highly recommend the Lego games. Get a Nintendo, like parents used to say in the olden days. Today this means a Nintendo Switch. If you are alone you can play Zelda or Mario Odyssey. If you have people to play with, you can play party games like Mario Kart. Nintendo games are popular and easy on new players. You can have fun as a kid, a teen, or an adult. Can't go wrong. Yeah, it's pretty much the easiest way to get into it. A lot of people forget that, if you're not used to video games, just learning how to navigate a third environment and use the controller can be a challenge for some people. There are no switches for sale in the world RN. It's sad. Open bracket. I'd recommend starting off with a more casual game to get your feet in the water before you dive right in, just so you get to know how things work. I'd recommend Plants vs Zombies or Spyro Reignited as great starters, though you have to have a damn good PC to play Spyro. Edit. To those pointing out you don't need a good PC to run Spyro, you're right, I ducked up. I just figured that, since my gaming laptop couldn't run it at high quality without chugging, that must mean you need a good PC, but it seems I was wrong. Have fun gaming though, you have to have a damn good PC to play Spyro. As someone who hasn't played Spyro since Year of the Dragon, wow, minus 2020 is sure continuing its weird as heck streak. Minecraft, just Minecraft, not modded Minecraft. Cause Minecraft with shaders won't run. Minecraft with Optifine may make his PC run it better actually. Portal 1 and 2. first-person puzzle game with a great story and memorable moments. I'm not sure I can agree. They are amazing games, but the puzzles can be quite challenging, and I feel the controls would be difficult for a complete beginner. I second this. Portal is a great introduction to first-person shooters, without the pacing of shooting, and also a great display of what game mechanics are capable of in terms of puzzles and adventure. I also recommend the Stanley Parable for this reason. It's first person, basically just walking, but has some element of other games hidden throughout. On top of that, it will pique your interest in exactly what video games can do with a narrative. Edit, a grammar lesson I learned. Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm a 54-year-old woman who has never had an Xbox. I haven't watched TV since Christmas. I spent my nights robbing banks, stealing horses and basically just exploring this amazing world. Best game ever. I'm fairly new to modern gaming, and this one just astounds me at every turn. It didn't take too long to get the hang of either. Just phenomenal. How did you get into this? Stardew Valley. Day goodbye to your next 100 or so hours of free time. Ducking autocorrect, am I right? Old school RuneScape. Say goodbye to your life. Animal Crossing. The other replies here are dumb, but Animal Crossing would require a Switch, which though has many fun and family friendly games, but is kind of expensive, and he explicitly says that he does not own any consoles. Come join Quarantine Island. Skyrim. That was my dad's first game and now he has over 5,000 hours. I wish I could make myself do something useful for 5,000 hours. Would Skyrim be conducive to someone who has almost no experience in video games though? There are a lot of difficult moments in it and it just isn't very welcoming to someone who wants to play for recreation and not to grind for long amounts of time. Super Mario Bros. 3. Super Mario Bros. 2 baby. I recommend getting a Steam account if you haven't already. It's like online shop for games. The account is free, you only pay when buying games, and the games then get tied to your account, so you can access them from any computer. You can search for games and sort by genres, multiplayer/singular player, suitable for kids, etc. People rate and leave reviews also. Yeah, like everyone else. KS saying, Portal. Portal 2 has 2 modes, single player story mode and 2-player cooperative mode. If you like puzzles, I also recommend Fez. Myst is available on Steam too. Undertale is fun and kinda retro looking, a kinda mystery/adventure game. Undertale is meant for experienced gamers, while a non-gamer could figure it out a lot of its impact would be lost on a non-gamer. Steam, absolutely. I love Portal 2 and Undertale dearly, but I'm not sure I'd recommend either as a first game to a new gamer. The former for shooter camera mechanics, the second for playing with game tropes. As a middle-aged guy who hadn't played video games in years, I found Red Dead Redemption 2 to be pretty great. It starts off with a tutorial that doesn't rush or I'm familiar with the controller, and that is really engaging. As part of the story, it was slow enough that I didn't get overwhelmed by the, to me, modern complex controller dynamics, but still kept me engaged in the game. Things were introduced slowly and built in a way that I was able to build the muscle memory to get used to all the different control options. It's made it much easier for me to start trying other games also. The story is great and it's beautiful during this shut-in time. I think all the controls would be a steep learning curve for a non-gamer, but I also have to say that RDR2 was possibly the most incredible single-player game I've ever experienced. Saying the story is great doesn't do it justice. The story was breathtaking. Zelda. It's good for all ages, all experience types, all genders. Tons of missions and side stories. It's not too childish and not too adult. Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword. I hate to be a downer, but I would disagree. I've only ever played Wind Waker, so I can't say a ton for sure, but Zelda has a lot of complicated things that beginners can't really ease into. I think it takes too much time to sit down, play, and learn Zelda. Don't get me wrong, the games are awesome. But if you don't have a friend who plays Zelda, I feel like it's not something to start out with. Excuse me, you are forgetting a little game called Wind Waker. Sims is always a fun game to get started with. Call of Duty Zombies is a mindless game that doesn't take long to get comfortable with. Assassin's Creed is slightly difficult to get the hang of for controls, but an amazing story and game. Portal and Portal 2 are simplistic controls and fun games. Also r/pay-chained gamers is a great place to look for reviews of games, popular and unpopular, to try out. Steam also has user-defined tags you can search to find games more geared toward your playstyle and interests. Hope this helped a little, and welcome to the gaming void. Sims is a great option, especially as it's on pretty much every console/tablet/PC. And it's really wholesome. Speaking of wholesome, Mario Kart is a good one if you want something to play with the family. Sims is good. I would say all three of the other suggestions have way too high a barrier of entry for a new player. FPS's general are too mechanically involved. I think gamers take for granted how difficult and unnatural K&M or dual stick controls are for non-gamers. And Assassin's Creed would be nigh impenetrable for a newbie. You need stuff to be simpler mechanically. Turn-based stuff. Stuff where you can't die. If you do decide action, best to start off 2D or more mechanically simple, like Mario. Tetris, addictive, it is. It's so simple yet such a great game. Slime Ranchers is a really fun and simple game I think everyone can enjoy. I believe it's free too. Sadly, it is not. I'm guessing you got it free with Xbox Gold, like me. But yeah, Slime Ranchers is fun, and their tutorials are simple and intuitive. Also, if it is free, thank you for telling me. I wanted to play it on PC for a while. Stardew Valley. Your wife and kiddo would love it too. Skyrim. This is my recommendation. If it's the game that gets 80-plus-year-old ladies hooked, it's safe to say that anyone can get hooked. First 30 hours will be mainly getting accustomed to the UI, menus, map, mechanics, and characters. Next 1000 hours will be absolutely fun. Little Big Planet. Minecraft. Skyrim. It's a huge open world game with decent role playing, and the good thing about it is that it kinda holds your hand through the game, so you don't get too confused. That is mainly why I recommend it over Minecraft, because MC just plops you in an infinite world with very little directions, and just tells you to play. And I remember not doing jack shit my first time playing Minecraft. Skyrim has quest descriptions and dialogue that tells you what's going on, and a fairly fleshed out tutorial and quest markers. Papers, Please. Glory to Arstotzka. To elaborate on this, it's not mechanically complex like FPSs are. All of those start out with a lot of looking at the floor/ceiling before you figure things out, and it's also really interesting. The Sims 4. Sims 3 if you're on an older computer. I like that Sims can appeal to different players for different reasons. Some people enjoy building houses and neighborhoods. Others like exploring via their sim. Others like building elaborate stories to follow along. Some like to kill their sims. A little bit for everyone. Mario Kart. You can all play together. Pretty much any console or PC. All ages. What PC runs Mario Kart? Jump right in W/Dark Souls. Purify yourself in its holy waters and praise the sun. This guy forgot the /s. Dark Souls is a very difficult and unforgiving video game. If that's the first game ever, they might hate it, and all games thinking they're all as hard as Dark Souls. I've beaten it and all the rest, but it would not be a good starter. Remember, it's their first game. Once they get a handle on games, definitely give this a go for sure. Cities Skylines may be good. It's a good start to learning about the intricacies of a game and figuring out how your actions affect what happens in the game in the smaller ways. Basically learning how the game works. Minecraft, of course, is a fantastic introduction to 3D games that has fairly universal core mechanics and broaches the world of altering the environment around you. If you want simpler games that are learned and played through quickly, Fireboy and Water Gerald is a simple online puzzle game built for 2 players. It's a great introduction to the arrow keys, WASD, and overall 2D platforming. Online games are great for a brand new player that hasn't really even touched WASD in the context of gaming. A nice MMO with a fair learning curve is Tanky Online. That will introduce you to multiplayer combat and class-based gameplay. These are simply recommendations. Maybe you fall in love with all of these games and become the best in the world. Maybe these are a mere step in the staircase to bigger and better things. Either or, those four should all be somewhat easy starts for your insertion to the gaming world. Minecraft and Fireboy and Waterjar are local multiplayer, meaning you can play with your wife and or stepdaughter on the same device. Tanky is an online multiplayer game, meaning you have to be on separate devices. Cities Skylines is single player. Cities Skylines is a horrible recommendation as it's very hard to run, and I doubt anyone asking this question would be able to run it. Oregon Trail, you have died of dysentery. Journey. Yes. Such a simple yet beautiful game which left me very emotional by the end. Civilization is a pretty good game for all ages and all difficulties. Civ does have a pretty good tutorial, and is generally much easier to get into than most strategy games, but it may be a lot to digest for someone just getting in. Just my 2 cents. You should try Sky, Children of the Light. It's available on iOS, iPhone or iPad. It's a non-violent game that was designed to be played with family and for gamers and non-gamers alike. Portal. The game has an incredible atmosphere and does an amazing job at teaching you the skills you need as you progress. Its sequel Portal 2 has the most touching story I've ever experienced in a game. While I agree Portal is an amazing game, it might not be the best for first timers. It was the game I tried to get my dad into gaming, and one thing I didn't anticipate is how unintuitive first-person controls are for beginners. It was a bit of a turn-off when he solved the puzzle, but struggled with using 2 joysticks at once in execution. Civilization. It will satisfy your middle-aged enjoyment of history. It takes no reflexes, because it's turn-based. It's mostly single player, so you won't have some 12-year-old beating you every 20 seconds. It is infinitely replayable, so you will never need another game. It's not even new. You can get Civilization 5 and all its expansions for a very reasonable price. Civ can be hard to digest though. My dad, who started playing Civ back in the friggin' 90s, was just telling me how he has Civ 4 and keeps going back to Civ 2. Just because he doesn't want to spend time trying to figure out the new mechanics. I offered to walk him through Civ 5 and 6, but I don't have 4, unfortunately. Kinda depends of what you like or think you would enjoy. I would suggest watching videos of people playing video games first, and see what kind of video games you like to watch, and then what kind of platform you wanna use. If you want an easy fun game, I could suggest maybe the Untitled Goose Game. No stress, all fun and bit more like puzzle/humor kind of game. It's not a game to take very seriously. Chuchel is also one you might like. If you want a fighting game, I would suggest a play-by-turn kind of game. Maybe the South Park, Fractured Butthole game or Drakengard 2 as the mechanics are easy to learn and kinda repetitive, but the story is good. Old school RuneScape. Say goodbye to your life. This GBH. It's a game where you can go your own pace and don't need to do quests at all like most RPGs make you do. Also it can probably run on a toaster and you can play with other people. Do you have multiple PCs? Brawlers are fun for everyone, is free and well liked. Ask around your neighborhood for 2+ Wired Sparks 360/1 controllers. Download Steam if you're willing to spend money. If you want to relax while trying to murder each other, then get a Hot Seat 4X game. Spore is a good game for all ages and skill levels. It's also endlessly playable, essentially an infinite universe, and there's tons of user-generated content. The gameplay does get repetitive after a while, though. I haven't seen anyone recommend any of the Telltale games. They're kind of like interactive movies. Controls aren't complicated, and there aren't many difficult/reflex type moments. But most of them are fantastic. Can't go wrong with the Walking Dead ones, the Batman ones, or even the Wolf Among Us. Also, there's Life is Strange, which is very similar in playstyle. Terraria or Stardew Valley. Terraria is more adventure based and Stardew Valley is relaxing but really fun. Terraria wouldn't be a great first game because of its complexity. Find something that relates to something you already enjoy. Maybe it's fantasy novels or sports or technology. Maybe you like building things. Below is all based on my opinion. There are thousands of options out there, but finding something you can relate to should be the most important aspect. Understanding the skill required to play a certain video game is something everybody has to learn to some extent, so that would be the second thing to be aware of. Some games have a high threshold of skill and can be a little disheartening to play if you feel you aren't capable. Decide what kind of experience you want. Do you want short blasts of energy or maybe a long drawn out relaxing time? Perhaps something in between. Then maybe consider if you want a story experience or a more arcade experience. Story based is self-explanatory, but arcade, in my opinion, just means more skill focus over story. But there is always a bit of both in a video game. One other thing to consider would be, how much time do you have to play? Some games require some time to get the most out of, whilst others only require maybe 15 to 30 minutes here and there. All can be played for hours on end, of course. But there does seem to be a time enjoyment ratio at times. I would suggest something, but you don't know me, so why would my opinion hold any weight? It would be easier finding out more about you to offer options, but I think you might be able to get a few options out of the above 4 things. Feel free to PM me if you have more questions. Video games are amazing, and I'm very excited for you to get into them. Maybe Don't Explode. It's a game where one person gets a manual and the other gets a bomb. The person with the manual has to explain how to defuse the bomb, based on how the person who has to defuse the bomb explains what it is they have to defuse. Keep talking and nobody explodes. If you do get a Nintendo Switch, I actually recommend Breath of the Wild. It's a very long, sometimes intense adventure game with dungeons and puzzles. It is my first video game, and when I started I couldn't control the camera and died within 5 minutes, but it's an incredibly forgiving and beautifully made game. So a PC gonna depends entirely on what your system specs are. For a drop-in and drop-out time sink, Stardew Valley, like building things, Planet Zoo, exploring and RPG, Skyrim, free with some MMO-esque. Warframe is grindy, but I like it. Also Destiny 2 base is now free to play. Turn-based strategy, Civilization or Anno. Kirby games, they're simple yet very fun. I want to go back to being 8 years old and sucking at platformers, but Kirby being just the right kind of challenge. The Elder Scroll V, Skyrim. As someone who didn't pick it up till older, to play with my teen son, Portal is so good. It's more a puzzle game that also plays as an action game. Skyrim is an enormous open world RPG and could be played on a older PC and has been ported to almost every console. It's got a good story and plenty of content. It's still one of the best games I've played this past decade. Portal 1 and 2. You can download them on Steam. The game's tutorials are outstanding, funny, and perfect for someone who isn't familiar with first-person shooter controls. But actually it's more so a puzzle-solving game rather than a shooter. And Portal 2's multiplayer is super fun that requires communication. You say you don't have a console. Do you have a computer? And if so, what kind? It will help to know what kind of games you can run and play. We have a mix of computers in the house. The most likely to be used is my personal Dell laptop. It would be nice to figure out how to connect to the TV so we can all see the screen at the same time. Halo and Spyro. Grim Fandango. Amazing story and a classic adventure game. Doom 1993 plays on everything, don't even need to use a mouse. Multiplayer makes things a little more complicated, since most multiplayer is competitive, which is generally not fun for neophytes to gaming at all. Big strategy games like Stellaris or Civilization might be good, since you can be cooperative vs the computer, and they also don't tend to require a lot of twitch skill like shooters. There's a lot of depth to the mechanics, a lot of room to optimize, but playing on lower difficulties lets you be competitive even without those optimizations. There's also old school arcade style games like Broforce that could be fun, and they also have good coop modes. Pong is my choice. There's loads that are basic and are everywhere. Worms, Minecraft, Terraria, Mario Kart, Forza, any puzzle game, Egg, Candy Crush. Maybe Skyrim. I think other people may have already said this, but it's a great fist time gamer game. My dad constantly plays it and has in his 70s. Minecraft. Depends on the system. I really only know Nintendo, so if you were just starting out and bought the Nintendo Switch, I would recommend Mario Kart or Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. You can set these games to easy difficulty levels that make it easy to learn the game while practicing. There's also Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is one of my favorite games of all time, but it might not be the best starter video game. Oddly specific but Skyrim. I wanted to be more specific, but apparently that broke the submission rules and was removed. We have no console, so online games or downloads only. Bonus if it is a game my wife and 15-year-old stepdaughter can play together. Stardew Valley. Minecraft. That's like asking what haircut would suit you best. It depends. Do you like shoot 'em up games, you versus enemies, blasting your way to glory? Or do you like stealthy games, where you need to sneak by hordes of armed bad guys, only shooting or blowing things up when you have no other option? Do you like racing games more than shooting games? Do you like Grand Prix type racing, or cross-country four-wheeling, motocross, skateboarding, skiing, farming, big city crime, or old west adventures? You can start old school with Mario, or you can start with GTA V or Red Dead Redemption. None of us can suggest what you may or may not like, just because you are a middle-aged guy who's never gamed before. Some games have free trials. Check a few out and see what appeals to you. One thing you can do is pick up a SNES Classic. It's plug into your TV and turn on simple, and has some games that were the first games for quite a few people and lasting favorites for an entire generation. It's going to be more expensive than other items here, but I believe under $100 and you'll have something like 20 games of good quality. Ignore anyone who says Dark Souls, they're being obnoxious. That game is difficult for the sake of being difficult for advanced gamers only. Monument Valley and Second are fantastic puzzle games with beautiful and mind-bending MC Escher style graphics. Available on iOS and Android. Start simple, find a Nintendo emulator and play Super Mario Bros. And work your way up. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.